When you have a show like Netflix's Black Mirror, a tech anthology that's meant to disgust, disturb, and unnerve its viewers down to their very core, how do the creators find a way to push their many viewers who are expecting exactly this too far beyond their comfort zone? Black Mirror is a show that I hope to talk about more on this channel. It's currently one of my favorites of all time, up there with Breaking Bad, FX's Fargo, and Parks and Recreation. It's a show that's meant to immerse its viewers into a horrific world of technology gone wrong and grief evolving into hatred, and it does so in the same way that our own smartphones are meant to seduce and addict us as consumers. Its goal is not simply to open our eyes to how terrible technology can be, but rather what horrors about humanity technology can unlock. With earlier episodes, this critically acclaimed anthology has asked us if technology will enslave or liberate us. What are the rights of a copy of human consciousness, and could technology have the potential to engross us until we're entirely closed off from our own reality?
Pretty heavy shit.
But perhaps the most human question that creator Charlie Brooker has posed to his viewers is how deep can someone dig themselves into a hole until they can't get back out? And usually have some kind of technology thrown in there or something, I don't know. It's a classic structuring tragedies, and yet Black Mirror chooses often to find a way to give the premise a sickening twist, or in other episodes, a purposeful lack thereof. These are stories where our protagonists travel down their endless grisly path from which there may be no return, but there's also some external force out of their control that's driving their determination. Most often the case is that they have an agenda that's so personal to them that the only way they can hope to accomplish it is by going through hell, or even causing hell for others. I think that the two episodes that pose this dreary scenario the best are Season 3 Episode 3's Shut Up and Dance, and Season 4 Episode 3's Crocodile. Spoilers for both episodes are to follow. In Shut Up and Dance, we root for Kenny, our protagonist, because for one, we think he's innocent. Secondly, we empathize with him because the situation he's forced into is out of his hands, to the point where he's not just fighting to survive, but he's fighting for his normal and safe way of life. And it just so happens that the only way he can accomplish his mission is by making hell for others. And even though we understand how horrible the things are that he has to do, we root for him possibly more than any other protagonist on Black Mirror because he's doing everything in his might to retain his innocence and his identity. Yet in classic Black Mirror fashion, we don't need Kenny to fail by the end of the story to see that innocence ripped away, because Charlie Brooker reveals that it was never there to begin with. By revealing our hero as actually being the villain, Charlie Brooker obliterates our stakes in the story as viewers and makes us just as pissed off and revolted as Kenny is horrified. Crocodile, however, takes a different approach.
And it gets really fucked up.
Whereas the thrills of Shut Up and Dance come from Charlie Brooker keeping all of his cards close to his chest and not revealing the next big twist until the time is right, Crocodile plays like a methodical horror drama that knows full well from start to finish how it's going to end and lets its audience in on it too. Crocodile's plot is pretty predictable and straightforward, and had it been structured with the same urgency and secrecy as Shut Up and Dance, I don't think it would have been nearly as effective. So why did this of all Black Mirror episodes have to be this slow? The way I see it, Crocodile paces itself within its landscape. The long and desolate roads of Iceland halts any immediacy the narrative may have, so rather than our lead being in a race against time, every move she has to make to cover her tracks is drawn out to the point that it feels like she's trying to run through molasses. And as a viewer knowing her sickening intentions, I dreaded her eventual confrontation with the likable insurance worker and every gruesome scene thereafter. Because Brooker decided to make knowing the end of the story a curse. I, along with many other Black Mirror viewers, assumed what the worst outcome of Mia's desperate trek to cover her tracks could be, and once her story collided with the innocent and mild-mannered Shazia, in the worst way possible, I knew that I was following someone who was committed, resilient, determined, and willing to do whatever it took to preserve her safety. And because of that, I dreaded every waking moment that drew Mia closer to her endgame. Soon the episode is transformed from a regularly tense Black Mirror story into a waking nightmare that put technology on the back burner in favor of a character piece that focused on the exploration into the mind of the most desperate woman on the planet. Shot not in the style of a traditional episode of television, but rather in the vein of an independent film that oozed with the same hopelessness and realistic violence of other works such as Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive, or Lynn Ramsey's We Need to Talk About Kevin, or alternatively the trailer for her new film You Were Never Really Here. Many of the complaints that I've heard about this episode is that it goes too far, with the final act consisting of a drawn-out killing spree that the viewers wish they had the power to stop, hoping fruitlessly that since there's such a distance between Mia and her gruesome endgame that there must be something along the way that can stop her before the worst happens. Yet thanks to the long and lonely roads of Iceland, Mia merely gets to her destination at her own pace. And due to her many victims' connection to the one character that we've rooted for all along, Shazia, we're already mourning on the way to her house for the family unit they are about to lose. The director John Hillcoat, who's never shied away from despairing works before, plants small cues throughout the episode to make the viewers hope that Mia will not be able to cover her tracks, while at the same time planting other hints that she will. In the end, it's more or less up to the viewer to assume whether the baby crying dying out earlier in the episode or Shazia's car not working will be moments later on that are left touched or untouched by Mia. In constructing a narrative around a character who through and through is determined to escape her past by digging herself into a morally inescapable pit, Crocodile was able to masterfully create perhaps the most despicable character on the show to date. Imagine for a moment if Shut Up and Dance had been told entirely from Kenny's perspective, without hiding his true intentions. Not only do you have an abominable human being as your lead, but you then have to sit through every terrible thing he does to survive, hoping all the while that some way or somehow he'll get his comeuppance. Essentially, that's the structure of Crocodile, deconstructing the confines of the twisty-turny Black Mirror formula to the point that the straightforward nature of the narrative is the most troubling and affecting part of it. Now, does that make for a good film? Maybe. Does that make for a good episode of Black Mirror? Maybe not. Fans of this show live for the insane plot twists that have been thrown at them in the past, and maybe purposely choosing to do the opposite is creatively stabbing yourself in the foot. Plus, with its blunt and violent and arguably unnecessary ending, it's a pretty difficult episode to watch, especially because of Mia's unseen final kill. And while the baby being blind in the end was a dick move and killing a baby at all was a volatile act in itself, the harsh nature of the conclusion did end up fitting the theme of the episode, to explore the darkest aspects of a person's will to survive. Crocodile's been panned by many as one of the weakest episodes of the series to date, and one that combined with Metalhead made the newest season just a bit too dreary. Yet for me personally, Crocodile was the only episode of Black Mirror ever to leave me shaking once the credits rolled. And in my personal taste, some of the best Black Mirror episodes are the ones that touch on a lead's psychology while exploring the environment around them that has shaped them into the troubled people that they've become. The villain's intergalactic escape from his toxic work environment in USS Callister, the screen-riddled dystopian prison of 15 million merits, and the rigid frozen hills of Iceland in Crocodile are just a few examples of how a location can complement the psychology of the characters within it. Even though it's almost as impossible to rank the episodes of this show from best to worst as it is to put them in a cohesive timeline, and while this isn't necessarily a review of the episode itself, I definitely put Crocodile in my top 5 episodes of the series. Charlie Brooker wants to affect his viewers, and no episode of the show affected me as deeply as this one.